Hello mentors, let's go about this spinning brain activity for the which does not belong part. Remember that first you'll ask students to make a spinner using pencil and paper, using any numbers, colors, letters, symbols, etc. So they're pretty free to do whichever spinner they want. They don't need to show you the spinner right away, because that will be used after. But it's a good idea to actually give them some examples. So make your own spinner and have it ready when meeting comes. Okay, moving on to the which does not belong activity. So this is a good routine in general for exploration. So you do it at the end of meetings, and then you show them these 4 pictures for spinning brains. Don't tell them much, but then you ask them in 2 minutes to think about which of these 4 spinners is different, so different than the rest, and why. So they need to write down and provide a mathematical explanations. As many answers are valid, they could choose more than one answer. So while you think about which spinner is different and why, let me give you some tips on how to run this activity. So the first tip is give students individual thinking time. It's very important. So you could say something like, let's all think, and give maybe 90 seconds, and probably use some music, maybe some Jeopardy music. Any thinking music is fine, so not too loud. All answers are possible, but they actually require a valid math explanation. And if students are unsure, maybe a student said, okay, I thought of 3, but I'm not sure why, you just try to ask them some questions to see what they can give you mathematically and go from there. So encourage them to pursue this inquiry. And finally, this activity helps you introduce new language, so sectors, probability, spinner, and also clarify how spinners work. Okay, so let's look at some possible answers. So you could say that number 1 is different or does not belong, because it's the only one having a repeated color, right? So it has 2 sectors that are different, but both are red. Look that the other spinners have all different colors in the sectors. Okay, so number 2, and this is pretty important, is the only spinner in which not all sectors have the same angle, and that will translate that the odds or the probability, say, of blue, it's way bigger than the probability of, say, green. And so you can have a small discussion about that. So this is important because, and well, we'll do a Danny's brain activity after, but we want to clear the misconception that to find probabilities in a spinner, all you need to do is count. You actually need to take care of the angles and take them into account. Number 3, what could you say is different? So this is an interesting feature. Is the only one in which the base of the spinner is not really in the center of the brain. And then students could say that that means that the probability of, say, blue is less than the probability of green, so landing on blue less than landing on green, just because the blue brain part is smaller than the green brain part. But we know that's not actually the case. So even though the regions are smaller in terms of the brain, since the angles are the same, then they actually have the same probabilities, all 4 colors. So this is a good discussion. Finally, number 4, you could say that for number 4, it's pretty weird spinners, the only one having 2 arrows. And then you could ask them how many outcomes, so in each way you spin. So here you could get pink and green, but after some discussion, you'll reach the conclusion that there's actually only 3 outcomes, namely pink-green, green-blue, or blue-pink. So it's not really that different from a typical spinner. Finally, after you're done with this, which does not belong, you will return. So you will say, now show us your spinner using your camera. So now all students show you the spinners. But that's not just that, but then you start connecting with the previous part. So maybe a student gave a spinner in which not all sectors were equal, so you could discuss about that, maybe calculate some probabilities or estimate, and etc. So be very flexible in this part because it will actually depend on what your students did. They can maybe change some of the pictures in the spinners, so make it dynamic, but make it kind of quick. And so this would end this part. Thank you, mentors.